Hey, how's it going? I'm going to go through how to launch the chat server application. You're going to want to go to this GitHub link. Once you're here, you're going to want to go, I'm not signed in. This is just an example if you're not signed into GitHub. Download zip. Go to downloads. Finish downloading. Your terminal F folder. Now I'm going to go npm install. You're going to want to in the README, there's instructions. If you do not have SQLite, you're going to need to get it. There's download link here for all operating systems. Here is the Linux console command to download it. But I'm going to go and this means I have it installed, so I'm going to proceed. Before you launch, you're going to want to make sure the node module is all installed. This folder must exist after the npm install. To launch, I'm going to enter node server.js. And I'm going to copy this link right here. And this is the main landing page. Once you're here, you're going to want to sign in. You can create a username, or you can just click sign in. It will default with a guest sign in populated. You could just press enter once, enter twice for username and password, and it will load with a prior user session. Now I'm going to create a user. I press enter there as a hotkey to create user. Username created, now sign in. I am a new user. And here I'm going to sign in as the admin. This is admin privileged user. Has access to some interesting stuff. We'll look at it a bit, but here I have 3 separate users. You can see their name here: guest, Mike7, and Fisto, the admin. You could see some prior user session and the different color coding. So all user session data is a off shade of purple, purplish kind of red. The light purple represents a public message sent by this user of this session. The dark purple represents a public message sent by another user that is visible to you. There's this wine light colored purplish red. That is a private message that you sent in a prior session. And then there's this darkish, this is more of like a wine color. And this is a private message someone sent to you. Here you can see prior GIF data, and just for example, is there something from guest? Okay, guest sent you a private message, and it was since cleared, so that's a bad example. But I'm gonna clear this. Okay. So now I'm gonna start communicating. Okay, so messages, public messages sent by you are this light blue. Messages public that were not sent by you appears black to other users. Hey. Howdy. So you can see these are all messages sent by different users. Let's send a private message. To send a private message, all the instructions are down here. PM is separated by the arrow key. So I'm gonna get all their usernames, Mike7 and guest. They're all right here. 7, comma separated. Guest. I could send one to myself as well. And then doesn't need the space, but I'm just doing that. You could send one or more of these arrow keys. And I'm gonna say, okay, so because I sent it to myself, it also sent me the message, but what sends is the original message unformatted. Other users will see, though, they won't see which users were directed in that private message. They'll just see the message itself on the other side of the private message separator. And you can see in this session, it is a dark red. It's actually different than prior session. It just appears in this dark red if you sent it, a lighter red if it was sent to you on this session. So Fisto sent this is private, and he only sent hey to guest. If you try and send a private message to a user that doesn't exist, there will be handling for that. So I'm going to go G hey. These guys don't see it. These are the only users in the chat server at the moment. They don't see no G is not a valid user in this chat. I could send a failed private message to, so that's called a failed private message. I could try and send a failed private message to a user in the chat with a user that doesn't exist. So G, so the message was sent, but also it gives you no G is not a valid user in the chat. I could send it to multiple users. G, D, all of them are not valid users in the chat. Okay, now I'm gonna try and send, I'm gonna do something interesting. So, hey. Okay, now I'm gonna log out guest. They're logged out. Let's see if I can send a private message to guest. So I just logged them out and attempted to send that same private message. Guest is not a valid user in the chat. I'm gonna log in. The message was not sent. You can see the prior session data, private, or sorry, from this user, public. Let's try again. And it sends. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to try and work out with GIFs. So here there's an automatic query for a GIF you want to send. It is loading there, but I could just be like, hey, right away all GIFs are sent, the exact same GIFs, the exact same order. There are 4 of them. That is just the way I designed it. I have a constant where you can change this number. With the GIFs, they are appended as a message, kind of like this, but it can be cut off like that. I can go like this and resize the window, and the messages will wrap, but the GIFs will not. When GIFs are sent by this user, it is a darker green. Other users, it is a lighter green. Now if I log out and back in, prior session data is public. I just kept as purple. It's easy to change in the cascading styling sheet, but the GIFs are loaded. I can go clear messages on one user, and those same messages will not be removed from other users' data session. I'll show this again. It's still there, even though I cleared it on this guy. Now I'm gonna go into another GIF type. Okay, if there is no responses from the Giphy API server for a GIF query, so I'm just typing in a bunch of jumble, a message will display there's no responses, what was queried, and this is the default kind of error message. It's the same. There's 4 of GIFs of whatever. I'm gonna try this now without internet. So what happened is there's a static image served of whatever I chose. It was a default image. I just snapped one of these. There was no connection for the GIF, and this was the query. And so now I'm gonna load all of this user session again, and the static images are served. There's an issue though when there is no Wi-Fi. The URL request that is stored, it still has to interact with the GIFS server, and it doesn't do that. I believe though if there's Wi-Fi, this might take a minute. And it loads again. Now we're going to look at something interesting. This is an admin privilege only. So I'm going to go sign in with the admin, and I'm going to hit this button at the bottom, users. This will show all user data, all messages sent from the first message. Unless it was removed in behind the scenes, you can only remove messages through the database in the console. I could show that after. Styling's there. You can see all user IDs and their passwords. If I try and go as another user, I'm Mike7. No privilege access. No privilege access. If I hit the admin URL again, try and sign into the admin, I can sign in because when you access this page, it is you are signed out of your account. If I try and sign in as the admin when you're in the chat server, you're already signed in. If I try and sign in as the admin with a bad password, incorrect password. Over here we could see for Fisto, okay, let's go for guest. Guest last message was a GIF. Oh, it was from, sorry, Mike7. No connection for GIF in order. It's a public message. The message title here I'm storing as a message type, but here bgif corresponds to bad GIF, and that is when a static image is served. You could see what is actually being comma separated. You can see what is being displayed right here as a div element. Here you can see it is cut off. You could just select all, copy. It'll show it is comma separated. So it won't actually fetch anything, but you can extract the actual GIF URL and paste it, and then it'll send you to Giphy. You can see the message type is private. Message access is private or public. Type is a message, a GIF, a message underscore S. This is a sender message, so it includes the unformatted message, so you can see what you typed. See what you typed, so I could go. It'll show the directed users in the message. Just for your own, if you're trying to message someone and you type something wrong, you're like, hey, what do I do? Or what did I do wrong? It kind of shows affirmation of user action. Yeah, so these messages are exactly what is on this part, excluding the username. Yeah. I'm going to go through the console printout for the server application. Right away, it displays all requests that pass through the server. Right away, there's a chat client get request. That's to get to this main landing. Okay, I'm going to sign in. Right away, there is a post request for the sign in. That's to handle authentication on the client side. When that is passed with the user data, this is something I couldn't get rid of, but if I preserve logs, I go sign in. This is the password and username encrypted. This is a default browser, Chrome browser display. I could not figure this out, but here you could see the GET request includes the password and username encrypted. And so that is, after the post sign-in, that is the GET chat server. I removed this authentication encryption from this. This is a custom logger I made. After that, the passes through the authentication middleware. It shows the request and the user ID making the request, and that's guest. Where you can see the client socket connection is in the server. I'm going to open this with Atom. So right away you see initializing client socket connection right here. A few things happen. There's some back and forth between the client and server. It makes sure that the client has all the information and authentication and data it needs to participate in the chat server. That includes having a printout of all active users that is maintained on the client and server side, and that is just the username. Um, it updates all clients in the current server on the server side and client side. It increments number of users. It also, most importantly, loads the client's previous session data, and then it's like, hey, welcome to server. I could show this with another user. It goes through the exact same steps, this time with the middleware hitting mic 7. Updates from current active users are guest, count 1, to current active users are 2, guest, and mic 7. Also returns a unique visible display of data. I could show clear messages, sign in again. There's also clears chat history, sign in. Previous session returns 0 messages. Those are visible messages for that user. There's also a disconnection event. I could try and go to the admin page. Authentication middleware is hit after a GET request for admin. User privilege it shows is guest, and so guest is also the privilege type. User ID disconnected because they have no disconnected because they tried to access another area. No matter what, it'll disconnect you even if you are the admin. I can go just preserve log. Navigated shows the default navigation. Sign in as guest again. Oh, is already signed in on the other one. Sign in like 7. The authentication is there in the GET request. Now I go to users, navigated using there's a GET admin request, but after that exists the authentication encryption that is omitted here. I'm going to go quickly through the database itself. You can find that in data. To access this, SQLite. Here I'm in SQLite. I can go table or tables to display the different relations. Here I'm going to show the schema for each relation. So this is the main relation, the chat data. It has a unique auto-incremented message ID that corresponds to the message text, the user who sent it, the type, the access. The access is private or public, displayed to the user. Type is like message, GIF, a special formatted message, an error GIF or a bad GIF. Here, user visibility corresponds to the message ID of the main chat data relation. It doesn't store the message itself, but it stores which message is visible for that user ID. And so that happens on when a user unloads their window, all of their embedded messages have this message ID, and there's an iteration to see what is visible in what order, including GIFs, and it stores all of those for that user in this database when the user logs out. The last one is a table of just users with their password and their privilege. I call it role here. It's their privilege, if they're an admin or if they are not. I just want to go through really quick what the file structure is about. So basically, when you launch the application, you're launching this file. There are 4 real main files. There is the client. So this is all kind of client implementation. Here you'll find under client.js, you'll find all JavaScript files that involve kind of implementation on the client side. The other main file directory you'll find is in the routes. This is all kind of a utility type source for the server, just to not make server as cluttered as possible. Server mainly contains SocketIO implementation, all the requests starting. This is a custom logger function I made. Here is a lot of Express middleware using intercepting GET requests with the so everything, including when you're creating a user, when you're getting the API GIF fetch, this is the main landing page GET request. Creating a user, this does not require authentication middleware, but here everything after is authentication middleware. So when you're signing in, when you're trying to access the chat server, when you're trying to access the admin page, and then we have the SocketIO implementation. That's everything after this line here to quite a bit of it. Everything here is the SocketIO implementation. This is loaded when the handlebar template rendering. Handlebar template rendering is in the views file folder. How the handlebar template is rendered is important. In V1 is the main landing page, rendered here after any of these URLs are hit. This is the main one I asked you to enter into any browser. V1 only includes the source file for in the JS directory under the client side, client control. It's important because when V2 is rendered, or there's access to the chat server after the authentication middleware, V2 is rendered. V2 includes not just client control, but also the other implementations for the client-side JavaScript files. Waiting client is most important because inside waiting client, SocketIO is connected. A client has a unique socket ID rendered for them, and all communication, live action between clients happens with SocketIO framework and SocketIO events. Hey, so that's it for the tutorial. Thank you.